as you can see, for which we are running more than a little late. I'm sure we'll pull back through the day. We in India are familiar with trains running late and then pulling back, what we call make-up during the day. Please, we are now ready to welcome, in a couple of seconds, Javed Akhtar, who we warmly welcome back, who is an old friend of Kalam. Shazia Omar, Tabish Khair, and Mudar Patherya with Mir Afsar Ali. And they will talk about acts of faith, the triple challenges of Islamophobia, stereotypes, and radicalization. Parallelly, at the Western Quadrangle, we are starting the session on science and enterprise with Devanshu Datta, Shumok Roy Chaudhuri, and Apurva Salarpuria, followed by, at the same venue, the Western Quadrangle, Ruskin Bond, which will be a children's literary meet special session.
A very good afternoon to you, ladies and gentlemen. We're a little worried about the weather. Started pittering, battering a little while ago. Thankfully, everything is all covered, as your personal lives would be with the insurance policies that you pay. We're covered as well. Thanks to Tata Steel Kolkata Literary Meet for having me on stage. What you're witnessing on stage is the minority community. No, I don't mean it literally. I'm saying that you are more in numbers. We're just 5 people on stage. So on stage, we're the... Thank you very much. Secondly, clarification that I have for everyone in the audience, since I've been hearing this ever since I've been on this ground for the last 1.5 hours, people have been coming up to me and telling me, we're very sorry for whatever happened, because they think I've lost someone. For those who are normally used to seeing me clean-shaven, okay, no one's died. No one's died. I haven't joined a jihadi organization. I'm not growing my beard beyond a certain length. It's just for a shoot. So let me make that clarification, because a lot of people came up to me and offered their condolences before even asking me what's wrong in my life. So as you can see, we have a very distinguished panel here. And just this morning, I was reading this report on Asaduddin Owaisi, the All India Muslimin chairperson. And he was a little annoyed about the Crown Prince of UAE being welcomed with open arms by our Honorable Prime Minister, Shri Narendra Modi. And he had a very interesting observation. He said, बाहर के दाढ़ी वालों के लिए अगर इतना प्यार है, बाहर के दाढ़ी वालों के लिए अगर इतना प्यार है, तो घर में जितने दाढ़ी वाले हैं, उनके लिए क्यों नहीं? A very interesting observation. Mudar bhai, would you like to touch yours as well? Well, like whatever. Can we have all the dadiwalas lifting their hands here, please? Okay, so that's one very, very celebrated community right now, according to Owaisi. We are all dadiwalas, and we are ghar ke dadiwalas. We belong to this city, we belong to this country. Now, actually, I mean, if we're talking about today's subject, it's about stereotypes. That's why I mentioned the beard. We're talking about stereotypes, we're talking about radicalism, and we're talking about Islamophobia. My father had a friend who was in the habit of asking money every now and then. And his name was Islam. The only guy he was afraid of was Islam. So for me, during my childhood days, Islamophobia meant my father being afraid of his friend Islam, who used to ask for money. That's the only Islamophobia I've ever heard about. The rest is to be discussed and discovered in today's session. Ladies and gentlemen, I'll start off with Tabish Khair's lines here. Where parallel lines meet, and I, O believers, cried Rumi, having lost the man he loved. I, who am not of the East, nor of the West, unchristian, not Muslim or Jew, neither, born of Adam nor Eve, what can I love but the world itself? What can I kiss but flesh? From Tabish Khair. Can we have a round of applause for that? Each speaker gets about 4 to 4.5 minutes to express his or her thoughts on the subject of stereotypes, radicalism, and of course, Islamophobia. We'll begin with Tabish bhai.
Thank you, and thank you for being here. Thank you for the invitation. It's a pleasure. I'll try and answer this very large set of issues with the help of 2 anecdotes, one personal, one political, and then perhaps suggest a way forward. The personal one has to do with my own reaction to stereotypes about Muslims, the stereotypes by Muslims, and so on and so forth. as a Muslim, as someone born in a Muslim family, when I come across stereotypes about Muslims or Islamophobia, I feel that it's not my job to react. If I react, I can only react as a human being. It's the job of non-Muslims to react, and many of them do. Okay. On the other hand, I think it is my job to react to the phobias and prejudices that exist within at least those Muslim communities I'm aware of. Phobias about, for instance, this monolithic idea of the West, this inability to distinguish between Jews, Israeli governments, and Zionism. Prejudices against women, I'm sorry, because I do feel that some of the ways in which some Muslims treat women are prejudiced. So in that case, I want to react to these things as a Muslim first, and then as a human being. And I feel that this is an equation that all of us should bear in mind. How are we reacting? What are we reacting to? And in what capacity? That's the personal element. The other element actually has to do with all these xenophobias and phobias on all sides. And I'll start it off by quoting just one line from an economist from one of my studies that came out a year ago, The New Xenophobia. This is an economist who points out that about $2 trillion changes hands, mostly as numbers, every day on the global markets. And this is 50 times greater than the total value of all goods and services traded globally each year. Okay? What he's trying to say is that most of the capital that circulates today does not exist as money. It's not invested in production. It's not invested in trade. It's not invested in services. Or if it is, then it is only invested on the terms of finance capital. Okay? So we have a world that came into being sometime in the 1970s, 80s, and has grown huge now, where the source of power, which is finance capital, circulates invisibly, and no national government has the guts or the ability or the will to control it. Okay? So you have power circulating all over the globe invisibly, and national governments appeasing it or just trying to live with it. Now, in that situation, what national governments do and political parties do is control human beings. Tax their citizens so that their taxes can be used to bail out banks when they fail, or control foreigners from coming in, or define some groups as belonging or not belonging. In that situation, various kinds of xenophobia are inevitable, because our political parties have totally failed, whether they are on the left or the right. They have totally failed to control and combat the main source of power, which is global finance capital, which is totally free, which is totally invisible, and the only thing they can focus on is human beings on the ground. Islamophobia is part of that equation. That is very important to remember. To think of it as something totally different would be to make a mistake. Of course, in different countries, it also has other sources, because Muslims, to some extent, constitute the most common minority all over the world because of a certain nexus of history. And those elements are there too, and maybe we can talk about it, but I think those elements are not as important as this main element, which no one faces up to, no one is allowed to face up to. Okay. Now I'll wind up by suggesting an option. Sometimes my friends ask me what can be done. These are so disparate, reactionary or other kinds of movements. All of them seem to have different agendas. They have different ways of reacting. What can be done? There isn't any kind of progressive position to take. And I feel that it's a mistake, because whether we are talking of Islamism, whether we are talking of what's happening in Turkey, whether we are talking of Trump, whether we are talking of the Hindutva loony fringe, something unites all of them. All these movements are in different ways sexist movements. They're movements intended to control women, to push them back. So if there is any way out today, it is by focusing on women's rights, equality for women. That might be the solution, not just of Islamism, but of a lot of other things. I think that's what I had to say by and large.
Tabish bhai, thank you so much. In fact, when we were discussing about who'd be beginning the session, and we thought of breaking the stereotype, because we're talking about stereotypes. So it would be very stereotypical if I would ask Shazia to begin the proceedings. because that would be the typical ladies first. So we have a stereotype there as well. We've broken that. You're second here. Shazia is from Bangladesh. I would also like to mention the fact that whenever I've been in Bangladesh, I've been absolutely bowled over by the warmth, the affability in your country. And it almost looks like it's my country. We belong to the same soil. And a few days ago, I was watching Rizwana Chaudhary Bonna, who's an artist from your country, who was saying that the language Bengali, that belongs to you. You've acquired it. You're born with it, and we have acquired it. We've fought for it. A beautiful thought. I've also been scared by several people telling me, every time I go to Bangladesh, they tell me, don't speak about the bloggers, don't speak about what's going on with the bloggers, but we're going to do that here. We'll perhaps begin from there. That free mind, and you have a free pen, yet you're being stopped at various corners, and that is a greater kind of phobia, I would say, than the so-called Islamophobia. I'd like to comment on that. Shazia Omar, ladies and gentlemen.
Thank you very much. And thank you for having me. And I agree, I feel Kolkata and Dhaka are so very similar, and I feel so much love for everybody here. And I think it's reciprocated, and I'd love to see more dialogue between the Bengalis in Kolkata and Dhaka. And I think I'm very grateful to Malavika for inviting me, and I hope to see more of this sort of collaborative.
Just one thing, don't beat us in cricket. Otherwise, we're okay with everything else. No chance.
I would like to talk about the bloggers. I would like to talk about Tabish's point that women's empowerment must have a really big role to play in the change we want to see. I'm just going to, I guess I'll start with a little bit of my personal experience. So I've had 3 run-ins with Islamic terrorism. I was living in New York right out of college, working at Lehman Brothers. I was in World Trade Center 1 when the plane hit, and I saw bodies collapsing around me. My building was crashed upon, and it was a really, really devastating time to be in New York, to be a Muslim, and to see the world changing around me. And the nature of the enemy was Al-Qaeda. It was a plane. It was quite faceless for us. It was terrifying, the hatred that it spread. But in a way, as it sort of settled down and the 2 buildings went down and nothing else went down around it, besides the changes in politics, you could move on. The second incident was when I was living in London doing my master's, and my subway station was Queensway, and I got in the subway, and it was the subway, the next stop, Edgware Road, and there was a bomb that went off. And so, again, it was a very close encounter. And this time it was a little more scary because it was like a guy in a backpack sitting next to you. So now you're starting to wonder, it's not just Al-Qaeda in a plane from some caves in Pakistan, it's everyday boys. So that's my second encounter. My third encounter, unfortunately, has been the one that has been the most terrifying for me. In July, my cousin's bakery was attacked by 5 hijackers in Dhaka, terrorists, and they went in and hacked to death 17 people. And it began with girls wearing sleeveless and hacking their arms, and it was bloody and brutal. And these boys were English medium school boys who went to the same school as all my friends did, Sunbeams and Scholastica. So this distant enemy has progressively been coming closer and closer. And this last incident has just sort of been something, there was no closure after that because there are still boys out there. And it just feels like in this age of technology, the spread of terrorism is becoming much more malignant, that people now sort of see this cause, ISIS, and these disillusioned youth who don't have something to believe in or some way to assert their discontent with the ruling system, they're finding a way to connect to this cause and say, we're part of that. Before, they couldn't say we're part of Osama bin Laden. But now they feel like, oh, we are part of this, and little pockets are springing everywhere. And this is very frightening because it means even if you are able to stop the situation in Syria, the spread of the ideology, and people are sort of taking it into their hearts all over the world because of the internet. So how do we deal with this kind of a situation? I think we used to think that poor people who've been disadvantaged, they might want to lash out against the system. But when these English medium boys from very well-to-do families have started attacking, then it begs the question, why are they doing this? And what I feel in Bangladesh is people don't have a space to criticize Islam or to ask questions or to change the system. Political party is quite instated, and if you don't agree with it, there's not much space to go. In the last 2 years, 30 bloggers have been hacked to death in Bangladesh. Not the best place to be a writer. And if you can't express your dissent, and if you can't argue, and if you can't have space to interpret the way you want, then there's a stifling, and that's for everybody. And some young people are being misguided and thinking that this is revolution, this is a path to freedom, taking radicalism, which is actually the opposite, and they're being used as pawns and they don't even realize it. But I think the best way for us to try and address this, and I write about it in my book, Dark Diamond, which is set in 1685, when Shaista Khan was facing the same sort of challenge between the ulema and the orthodoxy under Aurangzeb, which was going very against the plurality that Akbar or Dara Shikoh had sort of encouraged. And the best way to fight it is maybe create space for people to have dialogue, create a tolerance for live and let live, and through education and knowledge and more interaction, maybe we can break away from this increasingly homogenous interpretation of what Islam should be and make space for more expressions. And I think, women definitely have a huge role to play. I think throughout history we've seen this imbalance where women have never been able to be in positions of power. And when you let even little kids play with toys, it's, for some reason, boys will go for the guns and the violence and the competitiveness, and girls will go for harmony and cooperation. I know that's a big stereotype in itself, but I have a son and a daughter, and I've raised them the same way, and I've seen it from day one. So if that's the case, that women are nurturing and women want harmony, then we really need to encourage women to be leaders. And if the whole world was led by women, I wonder, would we still have things like war and the building of walls? I don't know. Thank you.
Yeah, Trump should have been hearing you right now. I mean, we almost had a woman leader. We almost had a good morning, a good evening, and a good afternoon, Mrs. President. Or you can't say Mr. President to Hillary Clinton, but then we just lost that opportunity. Okay, Mudar bhai, I remember when I asked you for your bio, short bio on you, and you said garbage picker. You mentioned that in the first line itself, that you clean up places. So now we have a problem which doesn't seem to get cleaned up all by itself. We all need to contribute, but we don't know the way forward. He's a columnist, he's an author as well. He's someone who really works very hard for social equilibrium. I'm talking about the lakes here, okay? So you do a lot of work. Here is some mess that we are all in. We're looking at it, staring at our faces, but we can hardly do anything about it because sabko apni jaan pyari hai. So is मामले में, what would you say? You can have my mic.
I disagree with you कि कुछ नहीं कर सकते. मैं ये कहूँगा कि जो यहाँ हाज़रीन मौजूद है, I am probably the only person whose name doesn't sound Muslim. So in a lot of cases, I can pass off as Keralite and I can pass off as Catholic Syrian, and that's a very big advantage because dispassionately दुनिया को देख सकता हूँ कि लोगों की क्या attitudes हैं.
Sorry to butt in here. I'll just tell you that Javed Saab is an atheist. Javed Saab is an atheist. Tabish bhai, I would say you're an atheist as well. Okay. Atheist who believes in the concept of God. Okay. She is a practicing Muslim, non-practicing Muslim.
I'm a Sufi.
You're a Sufi. Okay. Yeah. He was fretting about the fact that he's going to miss his Jummah ki namaz.
सर ये कोई बहुत बड़ा साजिश है कि कोलकाता लिटरेरी मीट जुम्मा के नमाज के वक्त पे यार you ask.
So I don't need to tell you what he's. I am a practicing Muslim. I'm still practicing every day. I haven't been able to perfect it. Right. Mudar bhai.
So I think the concept was, I grew up in a very devout family and my father has been a muezzin for nearly 40 years. And so that's the kind of background that one has. But I soon realized that if at the lowest common level, which the LCD, lowest common denomination level, अगर इस्लाम को आप जिएंगे नहीं तो ये label बन जाएगा. And I think the reality is that it's become a blooming label for the probably 40 14% of India's population. I would like to think that it's become a label for most. My concept has been Islam has to be lived. और लिफ्ट मतलब है कि अगर आपके रास्ते पे रास्ता साफ हो रहा है तो अगर उस आदमी जो साफ करता है उसका नाम आप नहीं जानते तो somewhere I brought it down to my sense of identity कि यार this man cleans that you don't even know his blooming name. So I got engaged with that. हमारे घर के सामने ऊपर वाले की बदौलत 192 acres of national property which is the Rabindra Sarovar. I got involved there as well, and just about everything you can think of in the Rabindra Sarovar I got myself involved in. So I bought my, and you can say that man is exaggerating, but this is how my mind works. I bought my Islamism to a very frontal Islamism. I'm not a backender. I would probably want to get involved with even Kolkata Literary Meet. Malvika ko shayad maine mail 6 mahine pehle bheja tha ki get me involved in some way or the other as a contributor. And the irony is that most Muslims in this country, especially because I don't know what happens outside, we've all become takers. We're not givers. We don't engage. We become insular. And one of the things was that इसके बारे में ज़रूर आदमी बैठ के complain कर सकता है कि ये वो है, no, there's no ये and there's no वो, there's only me. So my understanding was कि इसमें what can I do to change things? How can I be well, it sounds exaggerated, but I'm just saying, how can you be the force of nature that makes change possible? It starts with one individual. So I said, can I be an individual? तो कोशिश तो यही कि, and I can say that, Hazrin, some of you are even present here. There's Shelja who's sitting there who wanted to do an art camp in the Sarovar and said, blooming hell, we'll try and do something together. There's Nandita, I've tried to get involved in some of her programs. There's Diku Navroji, Calcutta School of Music. I've been a most inactive director, but I was there part of her organization. Idea is, how can I engage with the world rather than becoming a customer? I'm not a customer, I'm a vendor. I vend. So my regret is that most Muslims and most are customer state के हमारे लिए कौन क्या कर सकता है सर आपके लिए कोई कुछ नहीं कर सकता आपको खुद करना होगा. So one of the things that we did when when the Dhaka incident happened, so we in Calcutta said, what can we do? And we, as in the liberal Muslim who's sandwiched between a rightist majority community and even I would say Kattar minority community, which is from our community, we are sandwiched. Our voice never gets heard. We are the majority, incidentally. But the 2% on either side probably dominate 90% of all the attention. Whereas the bulge, which is us, our voice never gets heard. Because we are talking about peace, we are talking about running our everyday lives. We are saying no different. We are no different from you and I. Our voice never gets heard. But if I say I'm the guy who straps a bomb around my chest and goes around into the public or takes a vehicle and rams it in a crowd, my voice will be heard. And that's the irony. So what do we do about it? So 5 months ago, we had a small meeting of young, liberal, outward-looking Muslims at my residence. And we said, yaar, Facebook, social media ko istemal karte. And we started a concept called Your Neighborhood Muslim. Simple. So what is your neighborhood Muslim? Your neighborhood Muslim is Salim, the mechanic in Fierce Lane, Chunagali, who tunes every single motorbike that comes to him to the point that it purrs. And I would say that most police officers in Calcutta eventually जाके Salim bhai के वहाँ अपनी motorbike repair करा के आते हैं. Salim bhai is your neighborhood Muslim. He doesn't plant bombs everywhere. He is engaged in the jaddo-jahad of earning a reasonable rozi, dal roti kamata आदमी. But he's a damn good professional. So Musliman, Ahle Muslimin में ऐसे कई लोग हैं who effectively want to just earn a normal living and are engaged in doing things which are quite outstanding. It's just nobody knows of him because he doesn't go around strapping bombs on people. His problem is that he's in a minority. The problem also is that Salim, for all his goodness, doesn't extend beyond himself. That's the problem. So he does a reasonable job wherever he's doing, but I think it's beholden for every Muslim in this country, and I can speak only of this country at this point, go out and make a difference. Go out and touch communities. Go out and touch people. Get involved. Get involved with neighborhood committees. बोलते सर हमारे यहाँ तो पूजा होता है दुर्गा पूजा में वो पूजा दुर्गा पूजा में if it clashes at some level with your belief system, go and be a chaprasi there yaar. Go and manage the gate. Go and do something. Go and feed people there. Get involved. So that's what we do. We try and engage at our level. Our epicenter is effectively Southern Avenue and Sarat Chatterjee Avenue, and my range of influence जितना मैं कर सकता हूँ extends very clearly across a kilometer radius either side. Beyond that is the intangible, your association networks. But उस 1 किलोमीटर के अंदर कुछ भी होगा, I would say that It sounds exaggerated, but I think somewhere I actually believe it. I hold myself responsible. ये हुआ कैसे? या किसी को भेजो, अपने कर सकते हैं, चलो मैं नीचे उतर के करता हूँ. तो ये आइडिया मुसलमान का, मुस्लिमीन का जो कॉन्सेप्ट है, I think somewhere we've got it into our head, and the tragedy is the Muslims have got this into their head, that we are not going to get involved. We will get only involved with our people. Our people are people, who believe in the same oneness of our religion. And even then, in that, they've started slicing it, that वो हमारा जो है, हमारे वो मलियाबाद से आए तो हम मलियाबादी लोगों के साथ ही मिलेंगे, या मैं सूरत से आया तो I will only mingle with the Surtis. Sadly, what has happened is that because of this refusal to align in a narrow slice, we have begun to get rejected by our own people. And I think that's the blooming tragedy. So somewhere this sense of loneliness is not that I am one among various communities. Sadly, I'm also one within my own community. And I think that's the double fight that people like us we liberals have to fight. So somewhere the idea is to keep engaging. I'm not saying that we'll be able to achieve any big change in our lives. But I think one of the things that we will do is that we will continue to struggle through our lives. ये करते रहेंगे. तो ये मालविका को नेक्स्ट ईयर भी एक ईमेल पहुंचेगा कि हाउ कैन आई गेट इन्वॉल्व, और मैं शैलजा को तकलीफ देता रहूँगा कि यार करते रहिए प्रोग्राम सरोवर में, एंड डिकू विल प्रॉब्ली गेट अ नोट सेइंग दैट व्हाई डोंट वी गेट इन्वॉल्व इन दिस, एंड दैट्स द जॉब. वी आर इन अ स्टेट ऑफ कांस्टेंट एजिटेशन, एंड आई से दिस एजिटेशन इज अ वेरी पॉजिटिव टर्म, दैट वो एजिटेशन का जो जज्बा है वो कंटिन्यू होगा. अगर मैं सो इफ यू वांट टू सी इट फ्रॉम अ वेरी नैरो स्लाइस, I keep saying मुसलमान का बच्चा हो, कभी सेकंड तो आ ही नहीं सकता हूँ यार. And through that, not being second, I can help make my country and the world a better place.
Interesting. Mudar, you mentioned 3 names. You mentioned Nandita, you mentioned Malvika, you mentioned Diku. Only women you want to get involved with when you're working?
Completely. That's the constituency I'd love to work with.
Well, I remember when we were sitting at the Authors Lounge and Tabish Bhai and I were having a quick chat just before the session began. And he was saying that he met Javed Saab way back in 92-93 during the Babri Masjid riots, just after the Babri Masjid thing. And I remember something from that incident. The 6th December that happened, with the infamous 6th December. The Jummeh ki namaz immediately after the 6th December incident. So we all went, huddled into a mosque on Mehdi Bagan, Ripon Street, Quaint Lane. And the Imam Sahib was very charged up, saying that you have nothing to fear about. We will fight them. Them as in the them. We will fight them. We are the good guys. They are the bad people. They've broken down our structure. We'll fight them. And at the end of the namaz, he said a very interesting and revolutionary statement. He said, "Ab ghabraiye mat, kyunki Allah Musalman hai." और आप कह रहे हैं जावेद साहब कि वो एग्जिस्ट ही नहीं करता. खैर वो अलग बात है. एंड वी वर ऑल वेरी चार्ज्ड. अभी सिर्फ क्या अल्लाह मुसलमान है, लेकिन वो तो हमेशा से ही थे. अल्लाह मियाँ तो हमेशा से ही मुसलमान थे. ही hasn't had a conversion of any sort. So what is this Allah Musalman? Now coming to Javed Saab, your fraternity, you're not just representing the literary community, you're also representing the film fraternity here in a huge way. And thank God for though you're an atheist, thank God or thank Allah, whoever, for Javed Akhtar, ladies and gentlemen. In recent times, members of your fraternity have received a lot of flack. I remember last year, the word of the year was intolerance. Everybody was talking about intolerance, including the bhabis who are going out sabzi shopping and saying, "Meri saas bahut intolerant hai. वो कुछ भी टॉलरेट नहीं करती, मेरा कुछ अच्छा ही नहीं लगता उसे." तो ये भी एक किस्म का इंटॉलरेंस ही है. मैं भी टॉलरेट नहीं कर पाती हूँ, वो भी टॉलरेट नहीं कर पाती है. मैं तो कहता हूँ ये इसको डिवोर्स ही कर लेते हैं, सास को डिवोर्स कर लेते हैं, पति रख लेंगे. Now this new thing has come up. Look at Islamophobia. Of course, it's not new. It's not new as a concept. Javed Saab, on a serious note, your views on this. Ladies and gentlemen, we give you Javed Akhtar.
Well, there are 3 words that are given to us: stereotyping, radicalisation, and Islamophobia. As far as stereotyping is concerned, it's not new, and it is not exclusively for one community. We tend to make our life simple, slot people, stereotype them, then it becomes easier. Sardar aise hote hain. You are also a stereotype. Go out of Bengal, you will know. Bengali लोग का तो होता ही ऐसा है. ये बंगाली ऐसे ही होते हैं. तो अंग्रेज साहब, अंग्रेज टाइम का बहुत पक्का होता है. कौन सा अंग्रेज? अच्छा, first of all, even in a conversation, we turn communities, groups, nations into singular. We will never say students ने गड़बड़ कर दिया और साहब जब वाइस चांसलर ने नोटिस दिया स्टूडेंट बिगड़ गया तो एक है स्टूडेंट क्या तो we tend to stereotype people in every field. But as long as it is benign, it's okay. The problem starts when it becomes malignant. It becomes malignant from both the sides. People who are looking at a particular group of people, they have developed an opinion about it. And people who are within this community, they also have developed certain opinion about themselves. They are also stereotyping. It's a two-way street. Like Muslims are like that. The fact is that Muslims are no nation at all. There is a word, now Muslims have a word, Ummah. Ummah is all the Muslims of the world are one nation. Are they? Let's go and ask these Saudis or Kuwaitis, are we the same nation? In Kuwait, in any Middle Eastern country, so-called Islamic country, nobody, including a Muslim who is not from there, will be allowed to marry a girl, will be allowed to do his own business without an Arab partner, will never be given citizenship. This is the Ummah. It is. You are a Shia. Don't worry, nobody is perfect. Okay. So what? Don't feel bad about it. Now, as a matter of fact, there is no identity. It is falsely created by the people who are adversaries and by the people who are supposedly the supporters or the members of the group. It's a myth. And what is tragic about Muslim community particularly, that as far as the identity is concerned, stereotyping concerned, they are of great help. Because all the allegation that a VHP mindset puts on the Muslim community, these are exactly the same thing they are proud of. The fact is that it is a lie on both the sides. They say you are an invader. You have come from outside. They say I had come from with Ghaznavi. The fact is that they had not. The fact is that 90% Muslims of this country are converts, maybe more. But they are accused to be the outsiders, and they say, yes, we are outsiders. And why? Why do they do it? You ask an average Muslim, what is your lineage? He'll tell you, actually my great-great-grandfather used to sell dry fruit in Basra, a small state in Iraq. And while selling the dry fruit, he came to India and settled down here. My grandfather, somebody's great-great-grandfather, was in Rizwana, a small place in Iran, and he had come. And they are willing to come from Afghanistan also. But right on Khyber Pass, they stopped coming. Why? If you had come from Iran, if you had come from Iraq, if you had come from Libya, if you had come from anywhere, by the way, all the relatives of the caliphs, 4 big caliphs, live in India. There is not a single relative there in that area. All of them are here. Why? Why does he stop coming after Khyber? Just keeps on coming to India up to the point of Khyber, and then grandfathers stop coming. Why? It is because of Hindu caste system. If he accepts that my grandfather got converted in Punjab or in Sindh, which he did, or in UP, or in Madhya Pradesh, or in Bengal, they will ask him, what was your father before the conversion? This he didn't want to answer, doesn't want to answer. So it is Hindu caste system which has made him create a false lineage. The fact is, I don't agree with a friend, with due respect, that Muslims are only takers. The fact is that in India, where Muslims are 14%, most of the artisans, more than 50% artisans, are Muslims. You make glass, silk, cotton, pair of scissors, knife, whatever is made indigenously in this country, whatever, is predominantly made by Muslims. So how can they be takers? They are the givers. They are the mainstream. But these people themselves don't accept that and deny what is the reality. The reality is that they are the artisans of the country who had some money by the virtue of the fact that they had some craft in their hands. But they were not respected because they were backward. They were from a lower class. So there have been en bloc conversions into Turk and Afghan and Mughal religion only to get an entry within the village area. As simple as that. Now they are called outsiders who are the authentic, genuine, indigenous insiders. Because who was the low caste? That Aryan who gradually entered here? Or one who was living already here? The fact is that most of the Muslims of this country are the indigenous Indians. And these fools relate to Abdali and Mahmud Ghaznavi and so on and so forth, who came and looted them. The ultimate, there is no compatibility between Muslim communities, geography and history. Look at our neighbor Pakistan. They have missiles named after Abdali, Ghaznavi, Ghori. These were the people who had attacked these places which are called now Pakistan. These people actually attacked Pakistan. So, were you not living here? When I dig your land, Takshila's murtis come out. Do they belong to your forefathers or not? If they don't, then this land doesn't belong to you. So there is tremendous confusion within Muslim community about the identity, and this false identity of Ummah. The earlier they get rid of it, the better it is. Now come to the other side. The fact is that people who even understand it, the right-wing Hindu, he knows that they are not from outside. He understands that. But it suits him. He has created a history and they have accepted that history. This history was not there. We talk of now, it is overkilled Aurangzeb. If Aurangzeb was so bad, then obviously people during the time of Bahadur Shah Zafar knew about it. You face the fact that 1857 war was fought under the flag of Mughals. So Maharani Jhansi Bai did not know how bad Mughals are. Tatia Tope did not know that, how bad Mughals are and what kind of invaders and outsiders they are. And all the Maratha soldiers did not know. All the Rajput and Brahman soldiers did not know about it, who forced Bahadur Shah to become the leader. But VHP knows how bad Mughals were. The Mughals were not Islamic. They had nothing to do with Islam. They were very nice people. They used to drink. They were interested in architecture. They were interested in painting. They were interested in poetry and music. They developed music. They developed art, architecture, gardens. They were not mullahs. As a matter of fact, Jamaat-e-Islami has published a book, Hindustan mein Islam, Dawat or Jihad, Invitation and Jihad. It's about the Muslim rulers of North India, Mughal kings, Tughlaqs, Lodhis and so on and so forth. And their opinion is exactly the mirror image of a decent person's opinion. When they say this person was good, then you can know that he must be bad. And when they are criticizing somebody, then you know there must be something decent about him. the fact is, it made me so happy. They have criticized most of the Muslim kings. And they have said that these people had sold their souls to Hindus, and only to remain in power, they accepted Hindu culture, they accepted Hindu tradition, and then they named different kings that how they used to have these rituals in their darbars and this and that, so much. So, other book, which has I'm forgetting the name of the author, is an American lady who has written about Sanskrit in Mughal courts, and how Sanskrit was nurtured, how researches were done, how many Jain scholars and Brahman scholars were in different darbars of Jahangir or Shah Jahan or Akbar and so on. So this history is totally distorted, first of all. And this history has given, on one hand, biases, on the other hand, illusions and delusions to this community. Distances create strange kind of ideas. You know, my brother, who's a psychoanalyst, he lives in USA. He went to a party in New York. Somebody was, an Indian, was introduced to him. Oh, Dr. Salman Akhtar. So where are you from in India? He said, I'm from Lucknow. Oh, you are a Muslim from Lucknow. आपके घर में तो रोज मुजरे होते होंगे. So this is the impression. Now, there is a tragedy all over the world, that a minority community is identified by the worst person of the community, and the majority community is identified by the best person of the community. Will anybody, in his wildest imagination and total drunken condition, will identify India's huge, such large Hindu community with Nathuram Godse? Obviously nobody will do it, and it will be stupid. But you can, 17, 18 crore Muslims can be identified with Dawood. That is possible. So these are things. Now, radicalization and Islamophobia, they are parallel. They feed each other. वो एक किसी का शेर है बहुत अच्छा, कुछ तुम्हारी निगाह काफिर थी, कुछ मुझे भी खराब होना था. तो देयर इज ट्रूथ ऑन बोथ द साइड. ये जो रेडिकलाइजेशन और इस्लामोफोबिया है, इट्स अ साइकिल. द मोर द इस्लामोफोबिया, द मोर रेडिकलाइजेशन, द मोर रेडिकलाइजेशन, द मोर इस्लामोफोबिया. ये इसमें बहुत बड़ी हेल्प जो है, मुझे ऐसा लगता है, जो मिडल ईस्ट की रिग्रेसिव रिजीम्स हैं उनका बहुत बड़ा. और कमाल की बात यह है कि द मेन फाउंटेन हेड ऑफ दिस इस्लामिक फंडामेंटलिज्म विच गोज, व्हाट इज द फंडामेंटलिज्म एंड एक्सट्रीमिज्म एंड टेररिज्म? एक्सट्रीमिज्म इज मेंटल टेररिज्म, एंड टेररिज्म is extremism in action. They are together. I mean, one is theory, another is practice. That's about all. These fountainheads are nurtured by those people and protected by those governments and those countries and those forces which are shouting against Islamic fundamentalism from their rooftops. White House has protected Taliban. Taliban leaders had gone to White House during Ronald Reagan's time. He took them personally to NASA, showed them around. He gave a speech that these are the Thomas Jeffersons and George Washingtons of Afghanistan. Who gave them arms? Who trained them? You must read this book. You must have read that book, Both Wars. This was done by Britishers and by Americans. Jihad? What was jihad? In my childhood, I never heard this word. Jihad was an obsolete word. It's like dharm yudh. Nobody uses dharm yudh, this word. As a matter of fact, it was history. The madrasas that were opened by American finance and American guidance on the western coast of Pakistan to take care of Soviet regime that had entered Afghanistan. Now, till that time, there were Hajj, Roza, Namaz, Zakat. There were 4 essentials in Islam. In those books, which were published in USA, the books were even printed in USA. There were 5. Jihad was included. Jihad word was revived by these people, by CIA, by American forces and British intelligence. And then, what is happening? Again, look at their attitude. Pakistan, whatever Pakistan is doing, I need not waste my time telling you. There is, Americans have put $10 million prize on the head of Hafiz Saeed. Hafiz Saeed, who moves around freely, gives public lectures. They can find Osama, but they can't find Hafiz Saeed. They don't want terrorism on Pakistan's western border, but they have no problem with terrorism that takes attacks on India and Indian integrity. Because this is a bargaining chip. When you go there or when they come here, now this is a bargain. No, we'll talk to Pakistan and we'll see to it that it's controlled. But you do this for us. You open your markets for us. So the fact is that those Western forces that are talking about Islam and turning into Islamophobia are the people, are the financiers and organizers of Islamic radicalization. And their agents are Saudi Arabia, best friend of Western powers, Pakistan, best friends of Pakistan, USA, and those forces which were against this radicalization, including Saddam. Saddam was a dictator, but everybody is a dictator there. That is taken, that is given. Let's not discuss that, because that's there. But this dictator was a secular dictator. This dictator wanted to empower women. This dictator never allowed people like Osama in Iraq and so on. They destroyed him. Gaddafi, another ruthless dictator, but secular, pro-women. Women were in the army, women were in the colleges, in the universities, everywhere. He was destroyed. But Saudi regime, Kuwaiti regime, Pakistan, they are protected. So who is responsible for this? As far as an average Muslim is concerned, he is like an average Hindu. Everybody has certain benign biases. The benign biases go to an extent that obviously आपके घर में जितना अच्छा खाना बनता है आपके कज़न के घर में तो नहीं बनता ना. आपके यहाँ जिस तरह से हर चीज़ होती है आपके चाचा के यहाँ नहीं होती है. उन लोग क्या अजीब ही है कुछ. तो थोड़े बहुत जो biases होते हैं, that actually that bias gives you identity. If you'll believe that every language of India is as good as Bengali, it's not possible. Bengali is better. Has to be better. Otherwise you won't love it. So अपना बच्चा, अपनी भाषा, अपनी ट्रेडिशन लोगों को दूसरी ट्रेडिशन से ज़्यादा अच्छी लगती है. No harm in it. Keep that minor and benign biases. That will give you your identity. But to hate others, are you telling me that an average Muslim wants to go and kill somebody? No. Like an average Hindu would like to do. You put them in a situation, the politics puts them in a situation where a human being who is a collage of identity realizes that at the moment I have only one identity. This is created. This is a lie. As a matter of fact, we talk of culture. Look at in India what kind of marriages we have. Hindustan mein an average Muslim marriage, except for nikah and phere, there is no difference between this marriage and that marriage. They're all same rituals. Only in the subcontinent the bride wears red. In Middle East the bride wears white. All the traditions are the same. They live in the same manner. They have same culture, same language, same food. As a matter of fact, look at the tragedy of partition. The partition took place in Bengal and Punjab, where everything was similar. So it was created by the politician. And I hope she would know, but otherwise she wouldn't have been there at that time. That first time when they had local self-government election in East Pakistan, erstwhile East Pakistan, in the whole country only 4 Muslim Leagues could win. So they called that election null and void. And 9 communists and 11 Hindus won the election. So the fact is, it is imposed on us. It is imposed on the common man. And now you can choose sides. Do you want to help those who are creating this gulf, whether it is Tugadia or OSC? You want to be on their side. The moment you go towards Tugadia, you are helping OSC. And when you go to OSC, you are helping Tugadia. They are one. They survive in a condition of conflict. If there is no conflict, they will be irrelevant. The interest of the common man and the interest of the communalist can never be one. Common man survives in harmony, flourishes in harmony. Communalist survives in conflict. How can they be one? How can your communalist be your well-wisher? Not possible. It's not possible. He would like to keep you in a war zone. He will tell you that you are under a siege. Each one of them do that to their communities. But I think this Islamophobia is not only created by outsiders or the enemies or the vested interests, but within the Muslim community also, people who want to control. You see, you usurp all the human rights. You put women in parda. You give no right to common man. On what grounds? If the economic machinery is so ugly, you have to cover it with something. What choice Aurangzeb had but to be religious? If you kill your brothers, if you imprison your brother, father, if you imprison your sister, how would you justify it? I'm doing it for Allah. He can't say that. He couldn't have said, I'm doing it for myself. The same way, what about the Saudi regime? What about Pakistan? What about Kuwait? They have to be religious. They have no choice. All these Saudis, when they go to West, they play gamble in Monte Carlo everywhere. They have their own lives. I have known many Arabs. Out of the whole, 2 of them were teetotalers. Rest of them were drunkards. तो ये जो उनको फसाद रखना होता है for unjust system. And what we are doing, now we should learn. देखिए, sensible is a person who learns by experience, and more sensible is the person who learns by other people's experience. What is happening here? 58% of wealth of this country is owned by 1%. This is the latest survey. This country is ruled by a minority, a very minuscule minority. And this minority is the privileged rich class. They are the rulers. What law you want? If it suits them, it will be made, don't worry. They don't want to establish that this society is divided horizontally, which it is. Who are the most hungry people in this country if you communalize kar do, chalo, ginte hai? The biggest number will be Hindu people who are hungry, who are not getting job. Who are the people whose children cannot go to the school because of poverty? The highest number will be of Hindus. Who says the Hindus are having some fun? Most of the poor people of this country are Hindus. Most of the deprived people, most of the people in bonded labor are Hindus. This should not be established. This is wrong. Because if you establish that this society is divided horizontally, we'll be in problem. See to it that it is divided, constantly divided vertically. So the rich Hindu and the poor Hindu on one side. The poor Hindu is not getting anything out of it. Nothing. But he is feeling proud. Oh, my parampara, meri itihas, Sanskriti. Which is all rubbish, nonsense. I don't want to name anybody. The only crime in this country you have is to be poor. A Muslim, if he is rich, if he is influential, can get away with murder. Nothing will happen to him. I don't want to name people. If you are rich, whether you are a Hindu or you are Muslim, you are a privileged person. If you are poor, I wish they would even got to save them. So the fact is that we should call this bluff. We should become secular, not because we are very good people. We should become secular because that's a matter for survival. Even a Brahman can only live comfortably in this society when this society is secular. Secularism is not for the minorities or for only minorities that look after. Now come on. Give me a couple of minutes more. I'm taking a lot of time, I know that. But I'm speaking sense. We have strange, a warped relationship with our minorities, with Muslim minority. I cannot understand it. We have a Muslim personal law. In Bangladesh, which is a Muslim majority country, in Pakistan, which is not only Muslim but fairly regressive, you don't have these laws which you have in India. In out of 53 so-called Islamic countries, 49 countries don't have such laws that we have. Because if we stop talaq, 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 then we'll be anti-minority. That woman is not minority. That woman is not Indian. Because she's the property of this Muslim. Who is Indian citizen? Who is the minority? वो कोई क्या है? वो तो ठीक है. She's a thing. Teen talaq is not allowed in most of the majority of the Muslim countries. It is allowed. It's allowed. This Muslim personal law is a con job. According to Quran, in all kind of property, 1/3 goes to the daughter. I don't agree with that. My daughter will get 50%. But anyway, at least they are giving 1/3. In Muslim personal law, in case of agricultural property, this is removed, which is anti-Quran. Because it was made in 1937. During that time, there were Nawabs and Jagirdars. And that is done. This appeasement is for you. On the other hand, in any right, and there have been many rights like that, calling them rights is stupid. Every house that was burned was a Muslim house. Every shop that was looted was a Muslim. Every person who was killed was a Muslim. And every person who was arrested by the police was a Muslim. It has happened in this country many times. एक तरफ तुम ये गलत काम कर रहे हो, दूसरी तरफ तुम ये गलत काम कर रहे हो. जहाँ अपीसमेंट नहीं होना चाहिए वहाँ तुम अपीसमेंट करते हो, जहाँ जस्टिस होना चाहिए वहाँ इनजस्टिस करते हो. It's a warped situation. It's totally a warped situation. Now look at it. Read the newspapers between the lines. At the moment, India's attention is on UP and Punjab. यहाँ क्या होने वाला है? And while at this time, the security forces are loosening their grip on the murderers of Pansare and Dabolkar, they are loosening their grip on Samjhata criminals, they are loosening their grip on Malegaon blast, alleged criminals. They are saying, no, we don't want, we have no objection if you give her a bail. Why? If this person would have been a Muslim, NIA would have serious objections. And they had every time. In Malegaon, a Hindu terrorist group was caught. Before that, some Muslim boys were caught. They are still in the jail, in spite of the fact that the other setup has been caught up. They are in the jail. So this kind of injustice, this kind of prejudice is as wrong as Muslim fundamentalism and Muslim communalism.
Javed sir, thank you so much. I mean, I'm sure there was much more that could have been said. Mind you, with the panel that you see here, there are certain things which we cannot say on stage because कहावत है कि हाथी के दिखाने के दांत कुछ होते हैं और खाने के कुछ और. So we obviously have a restriction on time as well. Otherwise, this discussion could have actually rolled into many more things. Malvika, could we have an open house? Do we have an open house? Yeah, for 5 minutes? Okay. For 5 minutes, we have an open house. And we're very intolerant towards people who don't keep time. So, okay, too many hands going up there. Do we have a microphone or you could just shout out?
This was the first hand.
Please.
Yeah, this is a very secular statement I'm making. What my common sense says, like you're talking about Islamophobia, like there's no country in the world where the majority of the population, if it's Muslim, more than 50%, that's a secular state. So it makes me think, is it the fitrat of the Muslim people that moment the population becomes more than 50%, the state becomes religious?
I totally agree with you. I agree with you that these are the areas. As a matter of fact, you hardly find democracy in Latin America also, where there is more religiosity. Wherever there is religiosity, there will not be democracy. It is not only one religion, any religion. If it increases, as a matter of fact, in a democratic society like ours, a little 2 degree or 3 degree of religiosity has increased and you are feeling less secured as you were a few years back. You don't have the guts to talk the way you could some time back. So if it goes up to that Islamic State thing, obviously it will happen here also. We are in the process. You better be careful.
Hello?
Hello. Good afternoon.
Sir, I'm here. Good afternoon. My question is that, sir, is Islam a religion of peace? And
You've written it down? I mean,
Yes, I did.
Okay, great. All
Is
prepared.
Islam a religion of peace? And a few radical Islamists say that jihad is a peaceful endeavor, and they claim that Sharia laws are compatible with the democratic
Tabish
world.
bhai, if you would like to answer that question. Yeah.
Okay. Any religion, it depends on how you define it. Okay? And no religion is a religion of peace, no religion is a religion of war. Islam, the versions of Islam which are definitely not peaceful, as we can see all over the Middle East, and other parts of the world too. And of course the versions of other religions too which are not very peaceful. People can kill each other in the name of religion. So I think that question, and it's a bit similar to the question about atheism and religion. For me, and to go back to that, it's a problem that in Muslim countries you cannot be an atheistic Muslim. That's another matter, okay? That you can be in Christian countries and Hindu countries and in Israel too. But on the other hand, the distinction between atheism and belief is to a large extent false, because there are two kinds of atheism, there are two kinds of belief. You can say God does not exist, or you can say I do not believe that God exists. When you say God does not exist, you're making a statement of faith, and that is a problematic faith, because God's existence cannot be proved or disproved. You can say that God exists, and this is what God says I should do and do to you. Okay? That again is for me sacrilege, because you're saying that you know the mind of God. Okay, you can say God exists, I don't really know what it is, who it is, I can only do what I think is right, and that's about it. So on both sides, you end up with a position that can be reactionary, can be violent, and can impose your views on other people. So if that answers your questions.
We'll take one final question.
Thank you.
This
I
side.
have to,
Maybe
sorry.
here? Yes.
I must answer this question. Islam is not a religion of peace. The fact is that no religion is a religion of peace. You can be peaceful in spite of your religion, not because of your religion. You can love peace in spite of your religion. As long as Europe was religious, they were burning Catholics and Protestants on stakes. Islam, every religion tells you you are better. And they are heathen, they are wrong. And if you have any illusion that Hinduism is a peaceful religion, first of all Devi Devtas have weapons in their hands. How can a peaceful religion have weapons in their hands? Besides that, if you have still any confusion, you talk to any Dalit, he'll tell you how peaceful your religion is.
I love
We'll
you.
take a question from a lady out here. Could we have the lady, because because we have to have questions from the right wing as well as the left wing, so of the stage. Yeah.
Thank you so much for giving me this opportunity. I wanted to ask, as we are in a literary meet, why do we always have this Hindu-Muslim? Like you said, a Sardar and a Bengali, we never have any other person apart from a Hindu-Muslim and always a debate. Why don't we have a debate on mind and intellect? Today, whatever we are taught is our mind, and whatever we think is our intellect. Why don't we ever, I love the way you talk. It's not because of your religion. It's just because there's so
I
much.
hope no religion.
Yes, I agree. So,
You see, if you will talk of intellect, you will cease to be Hindu-Muslim. That's the problem. So you have to choose intellect or religion.
Quick word from Shazia as well. Shazia, would you like to comment on that? We're just doing a roundup, so after Shazia, Mudar bhai perhaps. We got just 2 more minutes.
Yeah, I think there have been a lot of other discussions also. We've had a great session on fact and fiction and things like that. But it's true, as soon as you start dividing people by religion or by race, the people in power start to use that in order to destroy rather than create. And so division in itself can be so dangerous.
Mudar bhai, closing remarks.
I think I will put it to Malvika. It comes down to gate. अगर वो सरदार जी वर्सेस बंगाली का डिबेट करते तो सिर्फ एक लाइन ऑफ पीपल वुड हैव बीन देयर, पूरी ऑडिटोरियम खाली जाती.
Lastly, yeah, Tabish bhai, one last remark. Yeah.
देखिए फाइनली ह्यूमन बींग्स रिलेट टू ह्यूमन बींग्स इन 2 ways. सेमनेस पे फोकस करेंगे या डिफरेंस पे फोकस करेंगे. अनफॉर्चुनेटली कुछ रिलीजन्स पे हिस्टोरिकल रीजन से डिफरेंस पर फोकस है, उसका एडवांटेजेस है. हिंदुइज्म में, ब्राह्मणिकल हिंदुइज्म में डिफरेंस पर फोकस है. आप जो कास्ट में बिलीव करते हैं उसी में है. उसका एडवांटेज है कि आप दूसरे का जाकर सर नहीं काटते हैं, अपने ही उसी में रिप्रेसिव सिस्टम में आप अपना खुश रहते हैं. मुसलमानों में, क्रिश्चियनिटी में यूनिवर्सलिटी पर है, सेमनेस पे है, सब एक हैं. लेकिन एक अल्लाह मानिएगा तब, अगर नहीं मानिएगा तो आपका सर कट जाएगा. तो दोनों तरफ प्रॉब्लम्स.
Last but not the least, Mudar bhai, I know how bad you felt when Javed Saab said, don't feel bad about being a Shia, I know. You were sitting next to a Sunni, so I just thought, probably the next song in Bollywood would be Sunni Badnaam Hui Darling Tere Liye. And Javed Saab would be probably contributing to the lyrics if it was like
I'll have another song, Shia, 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 Mera Jia Pukare.
Ladies and gentlemen, that brings us to the end of this session, much to the relief of Malvika. We've overshot time, but thank you so much for being such an attentive audience. The last time I saw such attention was when you watched Jurassic Park. This has been fabulous. You've done much better. Thank you very much, ladies and gentlemen. And we'd like to thank our panelists once again. We don't have floral bouquets here. We're breaking the stereotype. Thank you.
Who was the lady who asked, why don't we have panels on intellect? Yes, Shazia did a panel yesterday on history of Bengal. So did you come for that? Today's panel, if I was a little even older than I already am and started my festival in 1985, possibly a different set of religions would have been here. Sadly, our country gives us a different set every decade. So that's what we should be worrying about. Literature festivals are a very minor part of the whole story. So thank you, everybody. Thank you, Javed Saab. Thank you, Tabish. Thank you, Shazia. And thank you, Mudar. And thank you, Mir. We are waiting for Sunni Badnaam Hui. In the interim, we are starting our next session in about 2 minutes.